All right. Wow, it's loud. Here we are. How you doing? So I added this. This is on the site this week. That's put together by Kraus Anderson. A couple things to just kind of talk through. We did have a construction committee meeting last week where we got to tour the facilities at the high school. You see some pictures. There's quite a few pictures attached to this report. The rooms in Area K, which are part of the west wing of the high school, those are being, they actually have ceiling grid, as you can see in there. They're getting ready for lights. We would anticipate probably not long, right around spring break time, that we would we may be able to get those rooms back and start utilizing them again. The science wing in E, those science labs are getting the floors done right now, and they're working through some spaces. One of the things that's, as I'm talking, Tim can kind of scroll through pictures if he wants, but a couple things to keep in mind. So really the project is going to take a turn coming up here around spring break time, because that's when they're going to start some heavy remodel in the existing building over by the East Gym. And so we've been working with the city inspector to make sure that we have safe passageways for our kids, the different spaces. But they're going to start, I would imagine, within the next 4 to 5 weeks, we'll be taking those big precast tees off of the area of the building we talked about on the east side. Those will be coming off, and they're going to start building the firewalls over on the east side of the building. We'll have pathways and kind of chutes for kids to get to the gym until, probably about the 15th of April or so, and then when it gets nice enough outside, then we'll be going outside for PE classes, and then they'll take over the entire East Gym box and start the demolition of that space as well. What you're seeing in different pictures, a lot of these pictures have to do with the new addition and the new classroom spaces. In the new addition, parts of the wings are already painted. There's ceiling grid going in. The majority of the windows are in at this point. You can see in this picture the stairs have started to go in, and so that's a good sign and make it a lot easier. What's that?
That's recent. They went in when we were there.
Yeah, that's just Friday I think that picture was taken, and so they just starting to go in, and so just a lot of progress happening at the site, and we'll have construction committee meeting on Tuesday next week. If there's anybody that's not on the committee who'd like to attend, we always obviously welcome any of the board members who want to come, and we usually have about a half-hour walking tour of the facility when we do the construction meetings. Last week it was a little bit longer because we had a canceled meeting, and so we took a little bit more time to get through the building. What you're seeing in that picture is the existing band room. The big kind of dark square in the middle is where the wall's been cut out, and that'll be all glass to bring more natural light into the space. So it's just the process is coming along. It has its challenges and its hiccups, but we just try to keep our eye on the prize at the end, and knowing that it's going to be a phenomenal project when it's all done. So, questions?
I would just make a comment. In church on Sunday, somebody walked by me and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Wow, that high school sure is looking good, shaping up." So it might be internal problems, but to the outside, it looks like we're making progress.
Yeah, no, I think so. And it's kind of neat to see how the front of the building's really starting to take shape with the rotunda and then the outside track going around the existing gym box and some of those things. And so from the road, it's definitely finally taken its look of what it's gonna be like. And so it is pretty neat to see those different spaces kind of come to fruition.
Very good. Any other questions? Hearing none, then we move on further into superintendent reports. You have Alternative Placement Consortium.
Yes. And Erin can chime in whenever she feels like it, but basically this is just kind of a heads up. So currently we are part of a consortium on the other side of the river called 916. I think you're aware of that. It's an alternative district for placement for some of our children that have the most severe needs. And it's something that we've been a part of for quite a while. We're an associate member, but we've been kind of told that there's a potential where they may eliminate their associate members, and only the full members will have access, which could create somewhat of a vacuum for us for some of our children that have our most severe needs. Some of the districts around us, some of the smaller districts around us, including River Falls and also New Richmond, have talked about, they're not members of the 916 consortium, and so they have a tremendous vacuum right now when they have a child that comes to their district that has very severe needs that they can't serve in a regular building. And so we've started having a conversation about what potentially could that look like if we did something like that on the Wisconsin side of the river, and to serve districts, kind of in western Wisconsin, and what would that look like? And so I just wanted to make sure the board was aware of it, so that if all of a sudden you heard rumblings, hey, there's something kind of being talked about. We're just at the very early stages of having some conversation with the different districts about who would have interest and what would it entail and what type of needs would we be able to meet at that facility. I mean, and when we talk about that facility, it would be our most severe needs. I mean, we already have cluster programs, but these would be needs that would go beyond even what we can handle in a cluster program. So it creates staffing issues and some other challenges associated with this type of facility. And so there's a lot of planning that has to happen. I'm trying to see what the interest is at the superintendent level, and then a lot of it will get turned over to our student service directors to kind of figure out what it needs to staff and what does that look like. I don't know, Erin, if you have anything you want to add.
The only thing I want to add is just to make sure that we all understand that our goal is to keep kids in our district, in our home schools, and meet their needs where we can. So it's not looking to increase moving more kids out of a district to a placement. I just wanted to make that point.
It is
And
rare that we send kids.
We're contractually protected for the rest of the school year. I mean,
Yeah,
With-
actually
yes.
for a year, and I think we have 1 year beyond that, so they have to give us a certain amount of notice, but,
this is developing some type of Plan B just in case.
yep.
Okay.
For all the other districts, it's kind of their plan A, because they don't have access. We've had districts approach us and say, hey, can we open enroll, some of these kids into your district so then they could have access to 916? And, when we talk, and Aaron hit the nail on the head, I mean, very rarely do we send children out of our district. I mean, we can, the cost for some of these children to educate can be $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year, $90,000 a year. I mean, it's rare, but when these challenges come up, when you don't have facilities and staff to do it, it creates tremendous problems for that child not being able to be in the type of environment they need in order to be served. And so just want to make sure you're aware of it. I mean, there's no decision making or anything like that, but we're just trying to see what the interest is amongst our neighboring districts, and also start to look at what does that look like for us. So,
Any questions? Okay, moving on to upcoming meetings and dates.
So the first date that's coming up is March 21st. We have the CISA PAC meeting, and what that is the board PAC meeting. So that's on the 21st. Of March. It's a Wednesday night. It's in Turtle Lake. If you are planning on attending, if you haven't already, let Tim Miner know. Please email him and let him know, so that we need to get the registration done, I think, here in the next 2 weeks as to who is going to be attending. The other date that we have coming up, looking if you have your calendars available, the April 9th board meeting. Is that right, Tim? Both myself and Jamie will be out of town, and so looking to see if April 10th would work for people, if we moved it to Tuesday. Trying to keep it in about the same time, or what people's thoughts are.
Yeah, same here at this point.
10th.
That could change, but I will work to keep it,
Okay.
open.
Okay.
Oh, it's your last meeting. Yes, you got it. You're not getting out of it.
Don't rush
Okay.
too far ahead.
Yes. Don't. Okay.
All right. So
So-
we got a quorum and
Yep. So
no one objecting, I hear. So we'll move it to April 10.
Yep. Move it to April 10th then.
All right.
So.
Then
Do I have any more dates on there, Tim? Those were the big two. Oh yeah. Yep. Tim sent you out a placeholder, but April 16th is our staff recognition banquet night. And so you'll get a formal invitation to that coming up, but we want to give you as much leeway or notice as we can. But that is the staff recognition banquet on April 16th. So it's about a month earlier than when we've done it in the past, but May is getting so full of things that we don't have much choice. So, all right,
Will it be at the Hudson House again?
it will be at the Hudson House.
Okay.
We'll be serving chicken or chicken. So, oh, and pasta.
Will there be chicken?
There may be chicken and pasta. So, let's see, I guess I have two more on here. The long-term district planning email, there's a link to it. So, this is what went out to school district employees. It also went out to staff members in the district, and then also it went in the Hudson Star Observer. Just want to remind people that on the 26th of February, RSP and Associates will be here to meet with the board. And actually, remember, that meeting will be at Rivercrest. That's at 5:30. Everybody remember, it's at Rivercrest. We'll send out reminder emails that it's at Rivercrest. I can't say that enough. And what will happen with that is that's where members of RSP and Associates will be working with the board to kind of set the guiding principles as we work through resetting the elementary boundaries. There's been some rumors out there of just to kind of dispel any of those rumors that are out there that we've heard. So one rumor was this is for this fall. It is absolutely not for this fall. These would be boundary changes that would more than likely go in effect for fall of 19, so about a year and a half from now. Another rumor we heard was anybody that lived more than 2 miles from an elementary school was going to be impacted. Again, not true. We don't know who's going to be impacted yet because we haven't done the resetting of the boundaries or even explored the different options. Just want to make sure that we're trying to get people to let them know that they can come and listen to what the board's guiding principles will be as we carry through this process. And then it'll be a process of stakeholders and community engagement, similar to what we've done with some of the other construction stuff and things. So,
Well, this is our regularly scheduled February work session, so
correct.
are you anticipating hour and a half with RSP on this subject?
They asked that too, and I said, you can decide if you want to put a hard stop on it, or if I wouldn't imagine it'd take more than an hour and a half, 2 hours. I mean, but there are things that you have to, we'll have to get through, and they are, we don't want to rush them, but they're kind of the things that kind of set everything in motion. So, depending on the questions, I imagine the board has, and depending on the consensus the board comes to when it comes to setting the guiding principles, I think RSP said they usually last anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. This first initial meeting, so.
Will that be a meeting that any of the public can ask questions at?
Well, none of the public usually can ask questions in the meeting, but there will be several public meetings. There's one. I think we're working on schedule one for May and one September. Through that process, so there will be lots of opportunity for public input for both the board and for the committee that would be making recommendations to the board. So. Yep, they had told us that they will probably have that packet of information to us about a week before the meeting, so you have plenty of time to review, some of the things. They're going to bring examples of guiding principles that other districts have used, so you can see what other districts that have done, different process things, and some flow charts with that. So you'll have that information reviewed prior to the meeting so that you feel like you can come to the meeting well informed.
But this is a work session, it's not a action meeting where we're setting boundaries. This is just the starting of the process.
This is purely to set the guiding principles for how you want to attack this process. Basically you're providing the parameters in which the committee is going to operate is kind of what happens at this February 26th meeting.
Very good. All right. Nothing else more on that. We'll move on to the enrollment report for January 12th. Is that the second Tuesday or second Friday? What is it?
Yeah, typically we do a it's a second Friday in January and third Friday in September. But what you can see is the totals in where we were. So in September, our total district enrollment was 5715, and in January, our total district enrollment was 5733. So about 18 kids up, and depends on which area you look at. But, essentially nothing is real shocking on this January enrollment compared to September. There's nothing on there. It's like all of a sudden, wow, did we lose a bunch of kids that moved out or moved in? So just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that it held pretty steady from September when we went through this.
And we have one column there where it says other, and that's for Rivercrest is the only school that has it. It went from 14 to 24. Do you know what that other represents?
That is speech and hearing kids.
So as children that may not be typical school age, so they may be early childhood, if they get identified for needing speech services prior to being part of our 4K program or being a part of our kindergarten program, then that's where they would receive services through Rivercrest.
That's why it's only at Rivercrest,
Correct.
but it does add to our DPI total.
Yeah, I mean these are actual bodies
Yeah.
here. These aren't necessarily the FTE equivalents.
Yeah, these kids are seen, maybe an hour, maybe two, it varies. But yeah, we do get credit for those through the aid formula.
Mr. President,
Yes, Rob.
Tim, and I see we have 289 4K enrollees. We forecasted, was it 300 originally?
We were, yeah, go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was a bit less than that, because it was 80% of the 360, so it was right around the 280 that we forecast. Our total number is just over 300 right now.
Good, thank you.
Mr.
Yes,
President?
Heather.
One question, Nick. One thing I did notice is that all of the growth appears to be in elementary, that middle and high school numbers were all flat or down, but it looks like, there was a GED up bump of 6. Is that typical? Is that just normal variation, or is it something
It's pretty
else?
typical that most people, if they're moving their kids in the middle of the year, a lot of times that's going to happen with younger families. A lot of times families won't move in or out when their kids are in school, when they're in secondary and high school, and that's why a lot of times we see so much more immigration in grades K-5 than we do in grades 6 through 12, because just the age span of the kids. So, but yeah, that's typically what we would see. We can pull up last year's. It would be pretty similar.
And is it safe to assume that the increase from 9 to 15 under youth options GED, that some of those kids who are falling out of the senior high numbers are now enrolled in that youth options GED program? Is that where 6 of those kiddos went then?
On the you're talking about in that last column.
Right. There's 5
Yep.
fewer in the 12th grade, and there's 6 more in the GED. So I would assume that
In the Guido program. Yeah, so there are some students that would move from, essentially we work to keep them from being a dropout,
Yep.
so they would go into that Guido program. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
The only other significant change in the numbers from September was under the homeschool, and that was just a reporting issue. Is that right?
It's when they have to report.
Okay. So they didn't necessarily get it in before September, and now we're pretty confident these are closer.
Tim, the reporting date? October 15th is the deadline for reporting.
So this is typical to see that number change. All
Yep.
right. Any other questions on that? Hearing none, then we move on with our agenda to reports. And this is 5A, and who's taking this item?
This is me. I have some colleagues here too who are going to do most of the talking. Jordan Wood is Assistant Director of Student Services. He coordinates special ed services at the middle school and high school. Robin Rivard is our District Transition Coordinator. So they have been working incredibly hard this year on building programming and increasing opportunities for students with disabilities. So I will let you guys take it away.
And Tim, do you have our presentation link? Perfect, thanks. So today we're going to discuss a little bit about our transition planning for students with disabilities. We've been working really hard with some grant dollars from the DPI in order to improve our processes and really build our program. And so Robin Rivard is going to speak a little bit more about what our programming looks like currently.
Just to talk right into the microphone.
Yep. Sorry.
Make sure it's on. Yep, I turned it on. Yes. So this is my first year as the transition coordinator, and it's been a whirlwind, and it's been great. We started a program, we named it the Access Learning Program because we feel like our students with disabilities who are leaving us need access to gainful employment, as well as many employers in Hudson need access to people for people to employ. So we feel like we're solving a problem there. So I this summer met with CCH, Christian Community Homes, and set up a work-based learning program for our 18 to 21-year-old students with disabilities. Typically, these students were kind of housed in the high school and would leave from there previously. And it's just really important that they are with their peers and transition out of high school just like everyone else does, even though we're still serving them. So our curriculum is delivered at CCH. We're fully integrated with their staff and residents, and they are practicing all of those lifelong learning skills that they need to learn in real situations, and it has been a huge success for all involved. We have an agreement that we set up with the companies that want to join our Access program, and we find that partnership to find the ways that we can help both the business that wants to bring us in and to help our students learn. So instead of coming in and saying, okay, you have a waitress job, you have a dining assistant job, I actually go in and create new positions that they may not have thought of for our students to do work for them that otherwise doesn't get done. We do not take jobs from any employees there. It is a non-paid work-based learning site. We have had several students hired. Actually, the second week that I started this program, they took 2 of my kids right away and said, I want to hire them. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wasn't ready for that. But it's been really great, and it helps them as an employer to think outside the box of how can we hire some people with disabilities and get some needs met. So it's a real win-win for our community. And as you can see in this picture, those are the first group that started with me in the fall. I currently work with 25 students ages 18 to 21 right now. Of those 25, about 12 of them go to CCH. We have other work placements too in the community.
All right, so I'm going to speak a little bit about transition in general in the state. And so right now we're working under a DPI initiative, this Transition Improvement Grant, and that's Indicator 14 of the indicators DPI uses to measure success in the state, really focused on post-secondary outcomes. So our statewide initiative is really designed to strengthen and accelerate the process of our Wisconsin schools. There's a couple steps to that. So each student with an IEP, part of that IEP is a post-secondary transition plan. And those are focused specifically on what is a student's goal after school. Is that work-based learning? Is that what career are they after? And then how do we provide successful steps towards that? We really want to increase our high school graduation rates, as well as encourage contact with outside agencies, and just develop the strong career and college readiness for all students, especially with students with disabilities. So the last time we did our Indicator 14 data was 2014. So we're in cycle this year. But if you know you had a chance to take a look at this, our students compared to the state average, in higher education of our students with disabilities leaving Hudson High School, if you complete one term of a 2-year or 4-year school, you'll see that we're at 41.2% compared to the state's 27.5%. So that's a really a point of celebration for us that our kids are moving on to higher education and staying one term. Other indicators would be competitive employment of 20 hours or more per week. We're falling underneath the state average. And that's a lot of what some of our work is focused on, is getting those kids the opportunities and building skills here so they can be successful after high school. a place where we're higher than the state is other secondary training. So short programs, you might think of like a 9-month welding program or something along those lines, where kids are entering those programs 1 year after high school. And then other employment, competitive employment is 90 consecutive days of employment, and where we fall just a little bit below the state average. So a lot of our work will be to collect data, current data this summer from our Exeters, as well as improving our outcomes. And how we're doing that is we're working on a transition improvement planning grant from the DPI. So we had to form a team of high school administrators, myself and Aaron. Robin is on there. We also have some regular ed representatives, some counselors, regular ed teachers, as well as some community connections with DVR. If you don't know what DVR is, it's the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation. So it's a statewide agency. And that's something else Robin's worked really hard to form a relationship with them this year that maybe we didn't have such a strong relationship in the past. Some of the other deliverables with our grants would be a transition services rating scale. So actually taking 2 students and looking at what we're doing, how we can improve that, and where they've grown over the year. We did a tip day where we've actually assessed 5 different areas with multiple indicators on how we're doing and where we can look to improve and develop a plan through that. And the final piece that we need to do is we need to hold a community conversation, which with local employers and community stakeholders, and really start to develop some more opportunities for students. I'm going to let Robin talk a little more about that.
So the community conversation is, I'm really excited for. We are going to host it at the YMCA camp. They've been gracious enough to give us a really good deal because they support this idea as well. We are going to send out invitations to as many business owners, go through the Rotary and the Chamber, the Bridge, all those types of stakeholders, and invite them to the table to just talk about how can we as a community in Hudson become more inclusive for our young adults and our adults with disabilities, and how can we really embrace them and help them to be successful members of society. So we are holding that, I believe it's March 28th. Did you hand these out? Yep. Okay. At Camp St. Croix from 6 to 8 p.m. It's a really low-key kind of fun event where people are going to get together. You're going to mingle a little bit, and then we're going to have tables set up. And we just have a few driving questions that we're going to ask. I know that, if you look on the inside of the brochure, there's just some really good research out there on how employable people with disabilities are and how they really do outperform a lot of their non-disabled peers at the same age. And you can ask the people at CCH who have hired the students I work with. They are the most loyal, hardworking people that do not call in sick and don't skip work to go snowboarding and things like that. It's pretty amazing. So we're just going to really facilitate that discussion around what can we as a Hudson community do to, enhance what we already have, and then hopefully generate some solutions to that, and maybe what can we do next. So just bringing as many stakeholders as we can together to just talk openly about our young adults with disabilities. So I'm really excited for that. So if anyone is interested on the board or otherwise, we would love to have you. We will, this is kind of your RSVP. You can let me know if you're interested. I would love to have you there at a table. We're actually going to have some of our high school students with disabilities there and their families as well. We want to get perspectives from everyone because we think everyone has unique ideas to share. So I'm excited and hopeful that we're really going to come up with some neat solutions. I think working in Hudson, we have a lot of resources available to our young adults and our adults with disabilities. So it's just kind of an exciting step.
Mr. President?
Bruce.
So first of all, it's awesome. So great work. It's very exciting to see this as well. You said you are going to be getting out to these other clubs, the Rotary clubs, the Kiwanis, all the other clubs to let them know about this? You haven't done it yet, but you will be?
I have not done it yet. We just got this brochure finished. So that's on my agenda.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
We wanted
That's
to
great.
have a conversation with you first. So if community members start asking you questions or tap your shoulder at church and start to say, hey, what is this community conversation about, then you have some information to also pass along.
That's great. Also, just curious, what other grant opportunities are out there? I mean, I would think that this is probably a pretty growing area. Was it Sunday, on Sunday morning, where Amazon was talking about hiring a significant amount of autistic employees for their workforce, which also is a really unique program, and they're saying they're getting great results with it.
Yeah, so there are some more grant opportunities depending, surrounding that Indicator 14 survey. And actually, the state hasn't quite rolled out exactly what the requirements will be for that. That's coming out the end of the month, and Robin and I are going to sit on a virtual call. Brenda Swoboda is our TIG regional coordinator, and I've been working really close with her to get some details on that, where we reach out to students to get that post-secondary data, and the successful completion of obtaining that data could return monies back to the district.
Nice
And,
work.
and something else kind of neat is Dan Goodyear is the executive director of Christian Community Homes, and he and I have had several conversations, and he's digging deep to find some grant money to help support our kids because he would like to pay them.
Cool.
So it's pretty neat just to see how that's working.
Yeah, nice. Great job.
Mr. President,
Rob.
Tim, if you could flip back to slide 9. There was a really good story on slide 9. The one with the factoids. There you go. You know, the higher education, that 41.2% versus state average is phenomenal. So great job there. With regard to the competitive environment, why are we basically half? Is it lack of opportunity, lack of awareness? Why is it only 17.6% for us?
I think that might be why we're doing the Transition Improvement Grant. We want to know why aren't our students with disabilities being gainfully employed, because that is one of the largest indicators of post-high school success in life, is to have at least 2 paid employment experiences during high school. So that's really why when Jordan, I mean, we're all new to this, but I'm passionate about it, and I want to know why our students aren't aren't gaining more competitive employment. So that's kind of why we're doing the grant.
Got it.
Mr. President?
Sue.
At the school, do you have your own place or space, and do you teach, are you able to teach whatever necessary kind of skills the students might need for interacting with the public? I'm not asking the question the right way, but I just wonder if there was skill building.
Yep. So actually, I don't really have a place, but I make places in people's rooms when they're not sitting in them. I do teach a course, second hour, to my work skills kids called Work Seminar or Employability Seminar, and we work on the whole first semester was a lot of self-advocacy and understanding your own disability and standing up for yourself, and taking responsibility for yourself. And right now we're working on like resume development, visual resumes. So I do have a course where I have 12 students right now that they come every day, and that's one of their high school classes that they take prior to going into the work environment. So and then while we're working, I have job coaches that help me as well. And I meet with them monthly to let them know what kinds of skills I'm looking for in the kids and what their goals are. And then the kids also self-reflect on how they feel they've done versus how we have seen it. So we're really trying to develop that sense of ownership in our students with disabilities, that not everyone else is going to do everything for you. You need to stand up and take ownership for yourself. So yeah, we do all of that at the school, and then we do a lot of in-the-moment teaching and learning when something happens, because that's how they learn the best, is in a real-life situation. So when it comes up, we just politely step aside and talk about it and, teach them the right way, and 95% of the time they never do it again because they just didn't know the correct way. So it's pretty awesome.
That's a lot of what those post-secondary transition plans are about, is identifying skill gaps students might have, and then how do we work to address those so they develop their soft skills or other employability skills they might need.
Any other questions, Carrie?
Mr. President, with the community conversation, is that strictly Hudson businesses that are invited to that, or are surrounding areas welcome as well?
It's going to be Hudson businesses and then the municipalities in the school district as well. So we worked on the list. We're looking at local civic organizations, and then local employers. And if you have any suggestions that or people that you think we should reach out to, we'd really appreciate that as well.
Like, we're not going to turn anyone away if they show up and they're from like River Falls or something, but we're really focusing on the Hudson community because we want to keep our adults and young adults with disabilities in our community and try, just like we want to teach our own kids in our schools. So that's kind of why it's the Hudson area. We're hoping that other communities, I do have some other transition directors that are going to come and watch to see how we run it because they're interested in doing it in their community as well.
Okay. And can I ask a question about the chart as well? Sure. With the, like on the second line there, with the competitive employment at 17.6%, are some of those numbers possibly lower because they're in the line above that they're in secondary education, post-secondary education?
That's a good point. And so when they get the survey, it's are you doing this or are you doing this? And so it's a really like how do they record the data? So previously St. Norbert's has done this for us. And I think when we do this next round, we're going to get a good idea because hopefully we can be reaching out to our own students. But yeah, some of those students may be counted in just one category, so it might not be the true number. So
Okay.
It might not look as poor as it does.
Thank you.
I think when you look at those numbers too, I mean, if you add up the column HSD average, we have about 68%, so we've got some room to grow in terms of competitive employment too. Does that make sense?
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time and your effort in this area. And thank you for the invite. Unfortunately, I already looked at my calendar. That's Holy Week, and that's kind of a jam-packed week, and I got something already set that night. But I'll be interested in hearing what the report comes out. And I really like the idea of using the grants, too, trying to tackle this from different perspectives, so that's great. Any other comments? Otherwise, hopefully we got one or two members that might be able to make 2 meetings that week. We've got a work session on Monday, so thank you. All right, we're through with reports. Now it's topics for action, and first up is consent items. I would entertain a motion based on the language in the paper in front of you with the
Mr. President,
expenditures. Yes, Rob.
I move approval of the consent items and that the Chief Financial and Operations Officer be authorized to pay bills in the amount of $6,877,677.66.
Second.
Motion by Rob, second by Bruce. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes.
Mr. President,
We have some retirements.
we have some retirements, and so I wanted to call your attention to the 5 retirements that are in this this board meetings packet. First of all, Georgia Crucell, she's a FIED teacher at the middle school, 24 years of service. Sandra Perrin is a health assistant at EP Rock, and she has 21 years of service. Marcia Sherman, music teacher at Holton, is 11 years of service. Connie Root, band teacher at the middle school, 35 years of service.
Wow.
And Peg Eller, our assistant director of nutrition services, with 11 years of service.
Very good. We'll look forward to recognizing them on April 16th as well. But thank you for your loyalty and your hard work in this district. All right. Any other comments with regard to those retirements, rather? I guess we won't push them out the door yet, but all right. First reading of Part 2 of the personnel policies. This was discussed at our work session, and basically we need a motion at 2 different meetings for the first reading and then the second reading. And we're gradually tackling these. There were 4, if you looked at the materials, that was very similar to what we had last week. Now, Andrea, I know you got a lot of feedback. Were there changes made based on the feedback from the board at the work session?
There wasn't a whole lot of feedback. I'm certainly open to additional changes. I mean, the tweaks that were made were primarily with respect to the social media, where we had modified it significantly from the prior draft.
Yeah, I think the fact the social media was singled out has been discussed
Yes, a
the
couple different.
most, yes.
Mhm.
But we have, in addition to that, we have the staff conduct,
Yes, staff conduct.
alcohol and drug-free workplace, and the staff communications and lines of responsibilities. But
Yeah, they're all significantly redone as compared to existing policies, that's for sure. But pretty much in line with what was presented at the work session.
yeah, I think that I remember as the staff use of social media got like 90% of the discussion
Yes,
at
it
our
did.
last work session. So, is there any further questions? Otherwise, I entertain a motion to approve the first reading. Again, this is not final until we've gone through a second reading, but board members who haven't spent enough time on this or too much time on this, depending on the way you look at it, you're certainly welcome to make comments one way or the other. Or we can have a motion to approve the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Carrie, second by Rob. Any further discussion on, these are personnel, the part two of the personnel. We got multiple parts coming yet because it's a year-long process just for the 500s. Then we hit 400s and then 300s. And we should be done with this like in 2022 and we start the cycle all over again. Yep. Which is really necessary because some of these policies are 28 years old. So if we get this so that we never have a policy that's more than 5 years old, that's a big improvement. Given the way technology changes, I think that there will still be some that we end up changing along the way. All right, I'm not hearing any further comment, and we've had the motion. All those in favor of the motion to approve part one first reading, part two, I'm sorry, of the Personnel 500 series, first reading. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Next up is the 2018-19 summer school rates of pay. Mr. Grambo, I saw you moving your chair. Is this yours?
No, I was just wiggling.
Okay.
I'll take that one.
You actually will? All right.
Yes. At the board work session in January, we shared the proposal of both the summer school offerings as well as a proposal to increase the rate of pay for summer school from $23 an hour to $25 an hour. It has been several years since the hourly rate was adjusted, and administration feels this adjustment is necessary to attract and secure staff for our summer programming. We seek your approval this evening for this adjustment.
May I make a motion?
So-
I move that we accept the proposal to increase the pay and the prep time.
Second.
And is this, by approving the recommended proposal, is this the continuing proposal and the 2018 only proposal all wrapped in one, or are we doing separate? Do we need to do separate motions?
You're approving the memorandum there.
All right. That's what I just wanted to point out. One is a continuing proposal and the other is just for 2018.
Correct.
Only because of our special circumstance with the extra long summer of construction and so forth. Any questions then with regard to this motion?
Mr. President?
Yes,
Just
Bruce.
to confirm, did we do analysis to look at neighboring schools and what they're paying for the summer? To maybe speak to that a little bit?
It varies significantly. In Minnesota, I would say it's much more common to link it to their rate of pay, their salary. Wisconsin's different. They have, the range is typically more about $20 to $30 an hour. But we're in a pretty good spot in terms of the move to the $25. And we did do the research, and the adjustment has not been made since 2007-08 school year.
Wow, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? I guess I had one. What's the typical class if a teacher is willing to teach a class in the summer? How many hours are we talking?
For our summer, most of our summer programming is 2 weeks, 4 hours a day.
4 hours a day, okay. So that's like $100 a day then is what and the increase would be $8 per day for those 2 weeks. So we're talking 10 times that $80 increase.
Correct.
As an incentive to get a
More-
teacher to teach more
Correct.
and do less of whatever they do in the summer, I guess, besides teaching. All right. Any other questions?
Actually, I have one more. In the past, did we ever pay teachers on a pro rata basis?
No,
Okay,
not that I'm aware
thank
of.
you.
All right. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the recommendation for the summer school starting 2018, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Next up is the last item on our agenda is the overnight travel request. This is another item that was brought up previously at our work session and discussed. Costa Rica.
Correct. So this evening, we're back. We are seeking approval for an overnight travel request from the Spanish Department to take and immerse students in the Spanish language and culture of Costa Rica in June 2019.
Okay, time warp.
I better check my notes here.
Yeah.
This proposal, as you mentioned, was discussed by the board at their work session on January 23rd. And again, we're here this evening to seek approval.
All right. So just want to point out this June 15th to the 25th on 2019
Correct.
would mean that juniors and seniors are not eligible. This year's,
Sophomores mainly.
it would be this year's sophomores mostly. Okay. But I really like the idea of the extra year in advance.
Yes, because then they can do their fundraising, planning. The teachers meet with the students on a regular basis. We secure contracts with the travel agency. There's plenty to be done.
Well, I think that some of the comments, since we discussed this at the work session in January, 3 weeks ago, was that this is a very good narrative, talking about the trip itself, and then the different ways it meets the learner goals for students and so forth. And I like the scoring system and the candor that it's not, everything is not necessarily a 3. You know, it's graded 1, 2, and 3 for each category, but it meets the criteria, and it looks like it was promptly reviewed at both the building administration level, cabinet review, and now we're looking at this at the board level. So any further
Mr.
discussion?
President?
Otherwise, we'll have a motion.
I would just say that, again, reiterate that this is very thorough and very intelligible and well done and a remarkable, layout, structure. Yeah, it really is quite well done. I'm very impressed with it. And I would move that we accept the proposal.
All right. Any further discussion? I guess my other comment was I'm looking forward to hearing the students at Rotary Daybreak Club, because we're going to be putting on a presentation about Guatemala, and Costa Rica's not far away from there. But any other questions, comments? Otherwise, all in favor of the motion to approve this overnight trip for 2019, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, we are adjourned.
6:50.